I know this sounds like the lamest superpower in the world. Well, guess what? You'd be right. And the worst part? I can't even flip and control it. I can literally be walking down the street, minding my own business, and the next thing I know, 2 or 3 total strangers begin to follow me at a distance. I know this sounds paranoid. My best friend Amy told me exactly that. Which is exactly why I decided to hire a private eye and prove I wasn't crazy. Just follow me around for a few days, take pictures of everything I do, my surroundings, and who's nearby. I need to figure out why the hell these pervs are after me, I told him, and passed him a wad of cash. It wasn't a lot, but it would get the job done. In the next few days, I tried to keep a normal routine. I didn't tell anyone about the PI. And just like clockwork, the stalkers followed me. There were always 2 or 3, always men, and always completely different individuals. One day, I even had the nerve to ask one of them, "Why the hell are you following me?" I asked. He seemed a bit surprised, maybe even a little confused. Was he trying to think of a good lie since I had caught him in the act? "Sorry," he mumbled as he scratched the back of his neck. "You're just so darn pretty. Much prettier than that other girl," he commented. "Other girl?" I asked. Then I remembered that Amy lived in the neighborhood next to mine, so I asked him to describe this girl for me. Sure enough, it was her. Great, so now my superpower was putting my friends in danger. "Just leave us alone," I shouted as he tried to reach for my wavy hair. He looked like he wanted to lick my face off. That night after dinner, I texted Amy and asked if I could come over. I hadn't had the chance to tell her about the stalkers, and I needed to explain it in person. Maybe if she realized they were after her too, she would see that I wasn't so crazy, I thought to myself. "Sure, come on over. My apartment is a bit cluttered though." "Not like mine is any better," I teased. "Are you kidding? It's like a palace." I rolled my eyes and grabbed my purse, texting her that I was on the way. As I crossed the street, I paused for a moment and looked around the neighborhood. Everything seemed creepier at dusk. There wasn't anyone nearby, but I still got that uneasy feeling that I was being watched. I decided to hurry over to Amy's, trying my best to ignore the shadowy and shady eyes that were on me as I moved between the alleyways to her house. I heard footsteps running toward me, my heartbeat pounding. I saw a man closing in on me and switched directions, jumping over a fence. "Come here, girl," the man shouted as he scrambled over the fence. I reached in my pocket for my small can of mace. Mom always made sure that I kept it. And of course, like a total klutz, I dropped it and it rolled toward a street sewer hole. The man was almost over the fence as I turned the corner, scrambling to find a place to hide. There was nothing except a few trees and a sideways dumpster. With no choice, I crawled into the dumpster and held my breath. I heard the man closing in. He was cussing to himself and trying to find me. Come out, wherever you are," he shouted as he banged against the dumpster. I froze as I saw that his hand was right against the lid. Then I heard a car passing by. It must have spooked him because he ran off. I waited for a few minutes, then crawled out, trying to kick off the nasty, slimy trash that had stuck to my clothes. Amy's house was just right across the street. I ran to her door at full speed and slammed my fist on the handle. I was sure that other strangers were hiding nearby, waiting to pounce. She opened the door, startled by my frantic eyes and appearance. "You look like shit," she whispered. "Let me in and lock the door," I told her. Once inside, I went to wash up and explained to her what happened. "Wow, Jess, that's insane," she said, crossing her arms. You believe me now? I asked. She was silent for a moment as we sat down in her den. Amy, you do believe me, don't you? I asked. Look, Jess, I don't want to belittle what just happened, but maybe that was just a coincidence? I mean, you are so beautiful, and this is a bad neighborhood. My jaw dropped. I was infuriated. How can you even think that I'm making this up? I said and stood up, getting in her face. I'll have you know that they are after you too. Me? What would they want with me? Whatever the hell most pervs want with young women, I don't want to find out, I shouted. Look, just relax. You are here now, so that means you're safe. Please, I feel like I need to do something. Tell someone. I need you to listen to me, I insisted. I felt so lost and alone. Okay, she said as she looked around the room and then grabbed her phone. I have an idea. How about I record you explaining this to me, what's happening to you, and if something does happen, I can turn it over to the cops. Deal? She asked. I nodded, realizing that was probably a good idea. Just slowly explain about the stalking, why you think you are causing it and everything, Amy told me. She was right. Doing that felt good and cathartic, especially because it made me feel like she believed me. Afterward, we watched some Netflix and then I went to her guest room to catch some sleep. I was so nervous from the experience a few hours ago that I even bothered to lock my door inside her apartment. I just felt certain that strangers were outside now, watching and waiting. I had a restless night, tossing and turning and imagining the rest of my life being chased by weirdos. When did this all start? I really couldn't pinpoint a time or place, but it definitely felt like it was recent. Maybe Amy was right, and I was making up the whole thing in my head. 1 or 2 bad experiences doesn't mean I'm cursed. But what if she was wrong and I'm doomed to live like this for years? I wasn't sure I could. The only thing that helped me sleep was when I kept repeating to myself that it would all be resolved when a private investigator contacted me. Then I can go to the police and maybe get a witness protection or something once I have evidence. I told Amy she should just do the same in the morning, but she was in a sour mood. Jessica, you need to grow up. No one is stalking you. And now, you're wasting money on a detective? It's not a waste. I thought you believed me, I told her. Who's to say he won't just feed you what you want to hear? Or what if he's actually the one that's stalking you? I rolled my eyes. Look, I just need you by my side. You were last night, I told her. She sighed, crossing her arms, and allowed me to give her a business card from the PI. Please tell me that you'll think about it, I insisted. I don't want this strange power that I have to hurt you. Fine. At the very least, I can prove to you this guy's a phony, Amy replied. Later that day, Amy texted me and said that she did a background check on the guy. Totally bogus. His office is in the back of a rundown laundromat, she said, sending me pics. That didn't sound like what I had seen at all online, and I felt immediately cheated and duped. That Friday, I tried to call his office and see if there were any results. I was holding on to some hope that maybe she was wrong, but the line was either dead or disconnected. I told you, he took your money and ran, Amy said. Something didn't feel right about any of it, so I decided to grab a bus and try to find his office to get some straight answers. On the way there, a few strangers gave me leering looks, and I clenched my fists together, certain they would attack at any minute. You alone, girlie? One man cooed, his breath drenched in wine. I nearly barfed on his face and tugged for the bus to stop, hastily leaving and deciding to walk on foot. Every few feet, I decided to glance behind to see if maybe anyone was following me. I was sure as I spotted at least one person trailing me. I stood at the magazine counter, my mind racing as I tried to think of how to elude them, wishing that Amy had come with me. Then, I saw a small city park just across the street and decided to try and lose them in there. I brought a coffee from the vendor and casually strolled into the park, listening to the sound of the stranger following me, their feet crunching against the leaves as I picked up my pace. I turned the corner quickly and waited for them to appear. The second that they did, I tossed the hot beverage in their face, dashing across the park as they shouted in pain. I could hear them running after me, but thankfully, I was too fast and made it out unseen. 5 minutes later, I was in the private eye's office expecting answers, instead discovering that the building was burnt down. I saw that the fire engines had just finished with the hosing as I approached and realized that it had to be fresh. The Stalkers did this too, I realized. I didn't feel like anywhere was safe anymore. I grabbed the bus to get back to my apartment, texting Amy and warning her. I don't think we should go anywhere by ourselves until we call the cops, I told her. And tell them what? All we have is a conjecture, she pointed out. Please, Amy, I begged. There was a pause and she sighed. Fine, I can come over tonight and we can go tomorrow, together. There was something else hiding in her tone. Is everything okay? I asked. Jess. Look, I know we haven't known each other for a very long time, but I'm worried about you. All this talk of stalkers and curses and stuff is starting to scare me, she said. Well, it should. No, I mean, you are starting to scare me, Jess. This isn't normal. I'm worried about you, about your mental health. I clenched the phone, trying my best not to cry. I'm not crazy. They killed the private eye, and they'll come for us next. It's all because of me. All because of me, I shouted. Jess, please calm down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I just don't want you to hurt anyone, including yourself, Amy replied. What? No, I'm not. I mean, I would never, I said as I fought back tears. Did I sound that insane? I'm sorry. Let's just put the whole thing behind us. I'll see you tonight, Amy decided. Frazzled and frustrated, and a little bit depressed, I made it back to my apartment and took some anxiety pills. I didn't feel safe until Amy made it there. As she came inside and took off her coat, I had the sudden urge to cry. I was feeling down and sorry for myself because of her concern and because of everything I had gone through this week. Whoa, what's with the waterworks? Are you happy to see me? She whispered as I hugged her neck. I'm really sorry that I caused so much trouble lately. I wish I knew what was happening, I told her. She petted my hair and hugged me back. It's fine, just try to chill, okay? Look, I brought wine, she said as she showed me a bottle. I chuckled and wiped a tear away, grabbing her a glass. Help yourself. I just took some medicine so I can't have any, I said. Oh, come on. One drink isn't gonna hurt, Amy teased as she downed a shot. She squeezed my shoulder and said, the whole idea of this is to chill and lighten up, right? I guess, I said as I took the alcohol from her and poured a glass. I was just about to drink it when I heard a buzz from the front door. I'll be right back, I said. Sure, I will find us a movie to watch, she whispered back. I walked out to my porch and saw a small package waiting there. Frowning in surprise, I wasn't expecting anything to be delivered. I brought it inside and searched for the return label as Amy glanced from the couch. What's that? She asked. I don't know, but it's from that detective, I said as I went to the kitchen to get some scissors and open it up. Probably his bill. Right before he decided to skip town, Amy snapped back. I rolled my eyes and opened the package, pushing out a series of green envelopes, each with dates on them from the past week. Opening the one marked Monday, I soon realized that these were a series of surveillance pictures that I asked him to do for me. each with timestamps to show me when and where they were taken. In almost every one, I saw evidence of 2 or 3 men slowly following me from street to street, never getting too close but obviously following me. "Amy, you have to see this," I shouted excitedly. I slid her the first envelope and started to open the others, trying to see if there was a pattern to any of the people that were following me. "Hey, look, it's you," I said, pointing to a photo from Tuesday. She was standing on a street corner, on her phone as I was walking past. "Why didn't you say something?" I asked as I pushed the photos aside. Then I saw her in another photo, and another, and another, and another. I looked down at all the photos and felt my heart drop as I realized what the common denominator was out of all my experiences. Then I heard my door lock, and I looked up to see Amy standing there, her back turned to me. "Amy, what's going on?" I asked nervously. "You just couldn't let it go, could you?" she whispered maliciously. Her entire body language changed in a second. "What are you talking about? I was sure when I realized I had these powers that getting rid of you would be easy. A pretty face taken down in its prime by some pervy men? The cops would never question it," she snarled as she jabbed a finger at me. "But you kept getting away." My entire body was shaking as she stepped toward me. "Amy, you're like my sister. You've been here for me since day one." My mind raced as it suddenly occurred to me that was when the stalking had started too. It had always been her. "Don't make me gag," she said, smashing the wine bottle on the counter, shards of glass scattering everywhere. "I suppose the old saying is true though. If you want a job done right, you have to do it yourself," she mused. Then she lunged for me. I screamed and grabbed the scissors instinctively, plunging them into her side as she smashed the bottle against my hip. I fell to the kitchen floor as she looked down at where I had stabbed her. "You little bitch," she whispered as she grabbed them and tossed them to the living room. "Please, why are you doing this?" I said as I started to crawl away. "Are you kidding? You're a rich kid with everything handed to you on a silver platter. Mommy pays for this place. Guys adore you. Your life is perfect," she snapped. "And when I get done with you, I'll just say that you killed yourself. Manic depression, physiological breakdown. Your little tirade that I recorded about the stalkers will be evidence enough to convince any jury," she whispered, pushing her shoe down on my chest. I could feel her applying pressure as I reached for my oven door, slamming it against her face and getting up off the floor. Then I ran to the carpet where the scissors were laying. Amy grabbed my leg, forcibly tugging me back as she slashed the broken glass against my leg, and I managed to snag the scissors up at the last second. I turned and pushed it right into her left eye. She screamed in pain as I kicked her away and watched as she cussed me out and tried to get up without being able to see where she was going. She caught her foot on a loose rug and smashed her head against the stove, the sound loud enough that I knew she was unconscious. I stood there, covered in bruises and gasping for breath as I nervously dialed 911. 30 minutes later, Amy was in handcuffs. The police verified her plan to kill me by finding a typed-out suicide note that she had in her purse that I'm guessing she planned to plant on my body. I shuddered to think of the lengths she had gone to just to get rid of me just because she was jealous. As they escorted her out of my apartment, I saw her cold, dead gaze on me, and then she smiled. It was enough to make me want to cry. "This isn't over, Jess. Not by a long shot. Watch your back." "Ma'am, there's no need to worry. She can't hurt you anymore," one officer told me. After they left, I paced the room, convincing myself that I would be fine as I looked out to my back window. She was miles away, probably locked up for a good, long time. It was over. I saw people moving about, doing their daily lives. No one was watching me. And then I saw one man pause as he walked his dog, look up at me, then walk to my back door and knock. My heart pounded as I grabbed the knife, and I nervously opened it just a smudge, making sure the latch stayed on. "Are you Jessica?" the stranger asked. I nodded, keeping the knife ready. "No need for that," he said, pointing toward the weapon. "Just had a message for you." He winked at me and then gave me a flashy smile that immediately reminded me of Amy. "She wanted me to let you know. I'll be watching." He stood there for a moment longer, seeming dazed and confused. Then he mumbled an apology and left to return to his walk. Then I latched the door back and collapsed on the floor in a mess of tears. No matter where I go or what I do now, I will always feel like she is there. And chances are, even if she isn't, I know her eyes aren't the only ones she sees through.